Welcome to the fourth episode of this 7-part series on the history of the Great Kingdom of Buganda.
Njagala Kasai means I need blood. Yeah, I need blood. Yeah. When you hear it just openly, it sounds...
It's very eerie and scary.
yeah. It is even scaring, but it has its hidden meaning.
This world is being led by the dead. This world is being led by the dead.
Yeah, in Africa, actually, we almost had similar beliefs. Kings could be buried with a lot of items, to the extent even they were buried with servants.
Ah.
Yes. Now, when it comes to Buganda...
People are buried alive?
Yes, yeah. Actually, it was a pleasure to bury with the king.
Era nze nsanyukira ddala kubanga ekyamazima zaali ssaawa 2 ennaku z'omwezi 16 omwezi ogwokusatu.
You're dealing with the living, you're dealing with the dead. In the process of rebuilding, I have had to deal with history. I've had to deal with the future.
Engamba yi ani ayo kizza ebisaaniiko ekiro kino okumpi n'ennyumba n'entuukayo mu mazima nasanga ennyumba yeekutte.
Depends on what we appreciate as our own. For this is Kasubi Tombs. It's your own, it's ours, it's Ugandan.
N'enkuba enduulu naye abali munda nga tebawulira n'ennyingirira ddala ne mbagamba banaye mufulume.
Ensonga lwaki bw'olaba ennyumba muzibu azaala mpanga eyakwata omuliro mu 2010 bwe tubali tugizizaawo nga bwe yali.
Naye kale mpulira essanyu kubanga kati njirabako kubanga luli nagakaaba ne ŋŋamba yi nga tufudde ekitiibwa ky'Obuganda okuggwaawo.
Mu lubiri tebavugiramu ggaali, temukookolimirwamu nkoko empanga kuba Sseggwanga ali atya, ali omu ye kabaka.
Missionaries came preaching Jesus Christ as the king.
Yeah.
And we had kings here. We could say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, let your kingdom come. We had kingdoms here.
Our ancestors cannot be satanic, no. They once lived like us. If you say they are satanic, then when you also die, you will become satanic.
In this fourth episode, we talk about drums and the king's music, as well as the evolution of dressing in Buganda. It's important that you watch the whole series for context. Although we had intended to produce this series in vernacular, to reach as many people as possible, these Buganda tapes are presented in English. Any factual corrections will be addressed in a pinned comment. The conversation begins right now. Welcome to the Buganda series. I'm your host, Jonathan Benaya. Now, I must state that there will be segments in this series that include comments that are made in vernacular, or call it Luganda. So if you're listening to this in audio form and would like a translation, I've left a link down below in the notes where you can access a video form, a video version of this whole series, and there you'll have subtitles for the Luganda translations. But if you understand Luganda, then I guess you can access the series wherever you prefer. All right, let's get right in. Let's start off with drums and music. Do you mind just telling me a little bit about the hut that we have near the entrance that houses a number of drums?
Yeah, that hut, it has that name. It is called Ndoga Obukaba.
Okay.
Yeah, Ndogo Bukaba is the drum house. Yes, the word might have had some hidden meanings, because here we have a lot of like cultural rituals which they don't even exhibit to visitors. They are totally hidden and so sacred. Yes, you just take it and read it the way how it is. You take it the way how it is, but they don't reveal what exactly it means to you. Now, Ndogo Bukaba, we simply known as the drum house. It is comprising of the drums which were used by King Mutesa in the 1880s.
Are those the actual drums?
Actually, most of these drums there, they are very old. Actually, they were even totaling up to 100. Wow. But we got a tragedy of 1966 when the palace was attacked in Mengo. Now, after the military men attacking the palace, they even came here at Kasubi and they vandalized everything.
Oh dear.
Some of the drums were destroyed. Actually, those ones are very lucky. They were saved. They are now totaling up to 16 to 20. There are few ones which are there. But when you look at them, you see some of them are very old. They even try to do some refurbishment on them, on the skins, but you can trace on the strings how old they are. Yeah, most of these drums, they're made from cow skins, elevated with the strings. These strings adjust to the rhythm of that given drum. Somebody can even notice the type of a drum even when has not looked at it. Just sound, somebody will say, oh, that's the drum called so. Just on the pitch or its pitch. Yes, just to know. So they have different particular ceremonies where they're sounded. And they can be sounded in case when there is bad news, that specific drum, actually it is called kanaba. Bad news like death. Bantered, they can be sounded in case if there is any visitor who has come here to see the king. It can be a royal visitor or not royal. Then mujaguzo can be played when there is good news. In case there is a new prince who is born, mujaguzo can be played. Yeah, mujaguzo are quite somehow big in size. Actually, today even when you watch when they're commemorating the coronation ceremony of the current king, there is that particular drum which sounds at a very high speed and pitch. That one is called mujaguzo.
The huge one.
Yeah, the huge big drum. That's the one which sounds. Now the next one in size is bantered, and the smaller ones, that is kanaba. Now for the drums of Buganda, what makes them unique? They always have something inside when you shake it. When you shake it, you may think it's even a stone which was dropped inside, but nobody can tell, only the person who made it.
Interesting.
We used to call it the heart of the drum. Yes. Actually, long ago, our parents would even stop us from sitting on top of it. They would say, you break the heart of the drum. But in actual sense, they were stopping from destroying the drum. So for you, you could say, oh, I might break the heart of this drum. If you shake that drum and it doesn't have that thing inside, then it's not Buganda. For the Baganda drums,
it has to have
that small item inside which moves.
Actually, back in school, I used to be quite a celebrated drummer myself. But for some reason, I never paid attention to that. I think next time I meet a drum, I'll probably shake it around.
Yeah, you shake it. It's like a stone. You may think it's a stone or something. Yeah.
So the mujaguzo here, as you said, is the one that was particularly played during the reign of Ssekabaka Mutesa I.
Ssekabaka Mutesa I.
Okay. Yeah. When you go to these other palaces, like the palace in Banda where the current king lives, and also the Mengo Palace, are there other drums, or do they always pick this one and take it to do all those ceremonies?
No.
Do you have like mujaguzo everywhere?
Not really. When we're speaking in the issues of, especially here, we're speaking in the context of King Mutesa I, because this is his palace. Now, those drums belong to him. Other palaces, they have their own respective or particular like drums. Yeah. So this is the main man. This was his palace. Whatever I discuss in the context of the king, is Mutesa.
He's the main subject.
The main subject.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe perhaps the other question that I'd want to know is what then makes a drum royal? Because when I look at the drums, they kind of look similar, apart from like the size and what. What particularly makes this drum to be a royal drum? Is it the size? Is there a particular intricate way in which they are constructed? Is there a ritual that then makes them, that consecrates them from being like any other drum to now being a royal drum?
Yeah, there are those rituals, actually, that can be done even in the manufacture of that particular drum. Like these drums, they have 3 categories. Like I've said, there is Mujaguzo, there is Bantade, there is Kanaba.
Yeah.
In many cases, if a person claims to be a royal member, you must have a particular drum where you come from.
Okay.
In most cases, when somebody says, here in Buganda, when the people are discussing about a royal member, they will say that's a child of the drum.
Omwana w'engoma.
Omwana w'engoma. But in actual sense, they are meaning that he's a royal member. Now, Mujaguzo was a drum made particular for the children of the king.
Okay.
Actually, the original children of the king, the direct children of the king, that was Mujaguzo. Then, like Bantade was for the grandchildren of that particular king. The grandchildren of the king. Then Kanaba was for the great grandchildren of the king.
And the sizes go
yes,
down.
The sizes go down like that. So if somebody claims to be royal, you must have a drum where you've come from.
Okay.
So ask you, are you Mujaguzo? So if you don't understand, you say, what is Mujaguzo? But in actual sense, you have to know which drum where you're coming from. So they are made, the royal ones are made, that particular rituals which are done, that let us make for the drum for the children of the king, let us make the drum for the grandchildren, and the drum for the great-grandchildren.
Okay.
Yes.
Who plays or who is allowed to play the drums?
Actually, not everyone is allowed to play them. We have the chief drummer, who is called Kawula.
Okay.
Yeah, Kawula comes from the pangolin clan, the Lugave.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the pangolin is one of the world's most trafficked animals.
Yes.
Yeah, so it is a clan here, and he's also hereditary, his position.
Okay.
Yeah, he comes from the pangolin. When he dies, they go back to the pangolin and pick another one. Just the unique thing about him, he has to remain celibate the whole of his life.
Oh, even today?
Yes, he does not engage himself in any sexual or marriage practice until he dies.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was actually, we call him the chief entertainer. He was the chief entertainer of the king. Yeah. When it came to drumming. Yeah.
Interesting. What type of music would he be playing on the drum? And also, what method would he use? I see when I attend cultural performances, drums are usually played with the hands.
Yeah.
But at the celebrations that I see the current king attend, when they play the drum, they're usually using what you'd call mallets or sticks.
Yeah.
What is the difference? How are these ones played? And usually what type of music is he playing?
Now, these drums actually, they had particular ceremonies where they were played in most cases.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So these drums, even the music varied on a particular ceremony in case there was happiness. Like when we had like the death of the Kabeja.
Yes.
Now they couldn't play music of happiness. Yeah, they could first, like after informing the king, like your wife has passed on, that was a point of misery. So they could sound the drum like to inform such bad news.
Okay.
Now the drums for happiness came in when they announced the successor of Kabeja. Actually, it was still even at the burial place down there. Yes. I was here. Yeah, the drums, the music immediately changed. Wow. Immediately. We asked each other what was going on. They said they have a successor now of the Kabeja. They are going to introduce. Immediately after the burial, they came and introduced the king. That your Kabeja is here. So music varies depending on the given ceremony. Now the tools used in Luganda, they are called the minyolo. Those The hardwood, again, they also got from the Msambia type of tree.
Okay.
Yeah. They can be used when we're playing particular drums like Bantade. Now there are specific drums where they use hands, like this long drum in Ngalabi.
Yes.
Yeah. Now that long drum at times even we call the male drum. Yeah, because its pitch is very, very, very high.
Yes.
For them, they are unique. It can be made from a skin of a python or a skin of a monitor lizard. When it even came to the manufacture of these drums, they didn't choose any tree. The specific trees which they chose.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Uganda, we have Omubajjangalabi. Omubajjangalabi, that's where they got that long. The long drum. Omubajjangalabi, I never got its English name. It was only scientific. It was Aristonia bonei. It's more of a botanical name. I was doing a study in Mabira Forest there. That's why I got it.
Yeah.
It's Aristonia bonei tree.
Okay.
Then there is Setala. Setala is a Luganda word of a tree. That's why they make these other drums. Okay. Setala is, in English, it's called the parasol tree.
Palazzo as in Palazzo the musician?
No, it's parasol, like P-A-R, parasol,
Okay.
Parasol tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, scientifically it's called Pulchas fulva. That's the scientific name. Okay. So that is Setala for the other drums. Okay. Not every tree can manufacture drum, but they had specific trees. Now this Ngalabi one was made hollow even at the back.
Yes.
Whenever you sound it, sound could easily run very fast. Yeah. Someone can even notice it when it's in a distance that, oh, they have sounded the drum somewhere. Yeah.
Now, in my reading, I've come across several articles and journals. One that almost confirms that indeed the Mujaguzo collection had over 90 drums. Actually, several articles say that they total to about 96. But it's a lot more interesting to note that there were 3 very important drums in that collection. And as I've read and also done a bit of digging up, this has really sent me down a very deep rabbit hole. I realized that the drums that the king, the current Kabaka, plays at the most important occasions, especially the coronation, there are usually 3 key drums that you see. There is one called Timba, there's one called Kaulugumo, and one called Namanonyi. And this is actually confirmed by a photo that I came across as I was looking around, that I think was taken around the 1915s, 1920s there, by, I think it was a missionary, a British missionary called Dr. Etty Schofield, who was living in and working in Uganda at the time and was doing a bit of amateur photography. And I also realized that he took quite a number of photos all across the country, especially in the western part of Uganda. But one particular photo that stood out for me was a photo that showed the 3 drums, Kaulugumo, Timba, and Namanonyi. And in this photo, you see Timba in the middle. And actually, Timba, if you didn't know, is a direct translation for a python. in Luganda, Timba is called, a python is called Timba. And on this drum, you see, we could say a serpent that is engraved around it, which is quite interesting. Perhaps a discussion for another day. But flanked on the left and the right, you see the drum Kaulugumo and Namanonyi. And these 2 drums are usually the ones you see the king greeting, as the Baganda say, Okulamuze Ngoma. They're the ones that his handed mallets, or call them sticks, with which he plays. I think it's Kaulugumo that he plays. I'm not sure if he also, I think perhaps he also plays Namanonyi as well. Yeah, so those 3 drums were considered to be the principal drums. And to further confirm this, I came across an article that was written around the time of Ssekabaka Daudi Chwa. Actually, it describes his coronation. This particular article that has now since been translated to English was written by Katikiro Sir Apollo Kagwa, who was the Prime Minister at the time in the reign of Ssekabaka Daudi Chwa. And he basically describes the coronation a coronation ceremony and he tells him, these 3 drums are the chief drums of Buganda, and these are your most important drums. These drums govern your other drums, and they govern all drums in the kingdom. So the king goes on to play Kaulugumo, which we've understood is one of the 3 most important drums. This just further confirms the fact that these 3 drums are indeed very important. Now, when you actually look at them, they look almost nothing like the drums. Okay, the structure almost looks like your average drum, but the intricate way, especially for the two drums, Kaulugumo and Namanonyi, the way in which they are designed is quite fascinating and so beautiful. The finishing is done using cowrie shells, and it speaks to how really creative and how, if I could say, extravagant people back then were. And I've always thought that this part of the world, East Africa, was not as artistically, if I could say, not gifted, but extravagant, if I could use that as a phrase, than West Africa. Because when you study collections in museums all around the world that were stolen during the colonial period, a lot of the material that you come across is from West Africa. The Benin bronzes, those golden sculptures from like kingdoms like Ashanti, and I've always wondered whether there was anything that was really fascinating from this part of the world, Sub-Saharan Africa and East Africa in particular. But this deep dive around the royal drums of Buganda led me to discover that there was actually a drum, if I could say, variation of the Mujaguzo drum, and I think it was Kaulugumo in particular, that had been taken to a museum in England, and I think that's the Cambridge University Museum. This particular drum has since been returned to Buganda. I think it was part of the 39 items that were sent back to the country last year, 2024. But when you see the photos of this drum, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful, and it speaks to how quite particular people were back then, especially around building things for the king. And we even see this around the palace as it is today. Very, very fascinating stuff. And of course, you have things like the Luzira head, which is considered to be I think it's the oldest of its kind that has ever been found in Sub-Saharan Africa. And it was found in Luzira, Uganda, where we have the prison. I think it's the maximum prison in Uganda. It's a story that many Ugandans don't get to hear, but one of many, I could say, artifacts that are locked up in museums abroad. In that collection, I actually saw several regalia from like Bunyoro, and most of this stuff is royalty stuff. There was a specific drum from Bunyoro. There was, they call it a meatball that belonged to the Omukama, the king of Bunyoro. I also came across quite a number of items that were from like Acholi, Teso, Bukedi, Karamoja, that so many of us don't know about, but really meant a lot in this part of the world. A lot of it was stolen from royalty, which is very, very sad. Anyway, back to the drums of Buganda. I also realized that this collection called Mujaguzo has come, I could say, expanding with the years. With every coming king, they usually have an addition. They recommend or decree that a drum is made in their name for a particular reason. There were different drums for particular reasons. Some interesting ones that I came across, there was one called Vamukubo, which was basically played pretty much as a lead car to clear the way for the wives of the king as they walked around the kingdom. I also came across a drum collection called Endoda. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation, but Endoda was a collection of 5 drums that were also added to Mujaguzo. I think around the time of Sekabaka Mutesa the First, yes. And he instructed that his subjects made this drum for him this collection of drums for him because he wanted to add a bit of, I guess, some high notes in the Mujaguzo collection. I think at the time, most of the drums were more of like a bass section. So he was looking to add a bit of that higher note. And if you look at the drums, they're four, similar to how the drums of Buganda are constructed, but they are slender, they're tall and slender. And then there's also a long drum, which we call Ngalabi, as it's popularly known in Buganda and played quite widely. So Endoda was also added to the Mujaguzo collection. Then I also came across a drum, two drums actually, that I think were created under the instruction of Sekabaka Suna II, who we understand is the father of Mutesa I that built Kasubi. Now this drum, one of the two drums was called Kidimalaba Sajja Nyago, and this was basically played at the beginning of the battle whenever the king's army went out to fight and basically try to expand this great kingdom called Buganda. I also came across a drum called Nakawanguzi, I think that's what it's called, and this was played at during conquest, after like victory had been achieved in battle. What other drums? There's several drums actually that I've come across in several journals that I've been reading. There's another interesting one that was called, I think, Wango Tabuka, something like that, which basically says that it calls upon the leopard to react in one way. And this drum is also similar to another drum that was called Gwengo Gwemusota, which basically means you are the leopard, you are the snake. And I think it kind of describes the king in quite mysterious and, if I could say, formidable fashion, which is seen in so many ways around the kingdom of Buganda. The king is given these huge titles, as we've learned, to set him aside from your average man. Now, this particular drum called Wango Tabuka shows up in John Speak's journal. I also saw that it showed up in Lord Logan's journal as well, which might mean that it had quite a lot of importance. But I also understand this particular photo of the Wango Tabuka variation belonged to Sekabaka Mwanga, I think. The same king that we know is associated with the martyrs story, the Uganda martyrs that were killed because of their rebellion against the king. Then he's also the same king that was exiled to the Seychelles. And I understand this particular drum was also stolen around this period, which is very sad that you have regalia that has been passed down through generations, and then someone just comes and takes it away. And maybe just finally, let me talk about two other drums that I came across that were quite interesting, had quite an interesting story around them. Sorry about the barking dog. There was a drum called Chejo, which was played during the executions. It was sounded as a warning to all other subjects of the king, basically, to behave. And then there was a particular drum that I think was also commissioned during the reign of Sekabaka Suna II. This particular drum was called Kukanga Balimi. Now, Kukanga Balimi directly translates to mean scare the farmers or send out a warning to the cultivators. It was basically played at dawn, call it every morning, and basically sent out a message to the women in the kingdom to head out and cultivate the plantain gardens, amatoke. And it's written that it was basically a warning that if you didn't go out to cultivate as a woman, you'd have your hands cut off. Obviously, I don't know if this was just a threat or it actually was followed through. Obviously, a lot has changed, but history remains, if I could say, really, really fascinating. The list goes on, so I might as well, I guess, do a follow-up piece around music, around symbols of, if I could say, this part of Africa that have gone missing or that are returning, or like stuff that I come across that almost blows my mind and living somewhere around the world, yet they hold such great significance to the culture and history of the people in this part of the world. All right, let's get back into the conversation. What would happen if someone that is not assigned to play that drum played it? What punishment, if I could say?
I cannot say that there was a specific punishment, but even today we are highly prohibited. Yeah, actually, one of the things which we respect highly when you come here, you have to abide with the norms of this place.
Yes.
You actually briefed before doing it. If you feel something, you might do it like unintentional. You have to first ask that, please, is it okay if I do this?
Yes.
Yes, like here, women don't come here like putting on like tight pants. It's not allowed. Yeah, we don't have that specific punishment, but it's not allowed. Yeah, you have to get like a scarf and turn it around yourself. Yeah, then also when it comes to those drums, we are actually briefed, please, if you're not the chief drummer, don't tamper. Yes.
And women are also not allowed to enter that house.
Yeah, women are not allowed to enter that house. Maybe avoiding seducing the gentleman. Remember, I had to be celibate. Yeah.
Okay. Were there any other accompanying instruments that were played or are still played alongside those big drums? Do you have things like xylophones or maybe tube fiddle? I do see them when I watch Buganda performances like Baki Simba and the kind. For the king's music, is there any accompanying instrument?
Yeah, actually to get the best music, especially played the different instruments here, we had scenarios or ceremonies when the Abakongos, I don't know how to turn it in English, but you can call them, I think, initiators who could bring the spirits of a particular king. Can come to him and speak to the people. Maybe it foretells or it warns or it does anything. Now, whenever this particular kind of spirit came, it can be the spirit of Mutesa. Some came when they were very happy. Yeah, they could bring different instruments here. Actually, it could happen sometimes here. Yeah, it could happen. Could people clapping, could dance all over here. Yes, the tube fiddles, you could see them here. We had those Madinda, those local ones. Yeah, pop, with different sounds. Yeah, they could play them here. You could find different praises, which you've even never heard of outside there. So you can see various instruments on such ceremonies. Yeah.
Interesting. We've talked about the drums. I'd like to know about Barkcloth in particular, because I see that quite largely used around the kingdom. Do you mind just telling us the process in which it's made and also what significance is it to the people of Buganda?
Yeah, this material holds a unique significance to the people of Buganda as their cloth before even the coming of cotton. We've been having a series of innovations of clothing anciently here in Africa. In ancient Africa, people could even put on leaves as clothing to cover their bodies, to get the warmth. Sometimes they could use animal skins. Yeah, then that's how we innovated the Barkcloth. Later, actually, it is the people of the Otter clan.
Otter, the small mammal that swims?
Yeah, with regard to be the best swimmer, I think, that mammal. Yeah, the Otter clan. Yeah.
How is it called in Luganda?
In Luganda, it's called a ngonge. Yeah, a ngonge. Yeah, so the chief, he was a hunter actually when reading the books, that gentleman. He could hunt, could actually fix himself the nets which could use to capture the animals. It is alleged that he could use tree barks most times. Yeah, he could make nets. to capture these animals. Now, when he landed on the African fig tree, it gave him something which is unique, which he never even expected. Because it is alleged that whenever he could like beat or mallet this material to like make something over rope, for it could just even expand. Yeah, it kept on expanding. Actually, they even arrested him. There is a book which describes how this barkcloth came in. They arrested this gentleman, took him to the king. By that time, the king was called Chimera. The barkcloth manufacture in Buganda is traced over 500 years back in Buganda. They took this gentleman to the king and they told the king, this man keeps on hammering. We don't know what he's eating each day, every night. The man is beating stuff which you don't understand. So the man took and showed the king, to the king, now, since I'm a hunter, I could do this and this and this, but now I land on this material. And I found that we can get something from this material, cloth. Because the king, how do you get a cloth from this? So the man elaborated everything to the king, King Chimera. And it is alleged that the first king of Buganda to put on the barkcloth was called Chimera. Yeah. Actually, they even give this gentleman a name. The name Wamala. Wamala is a name from the people of the Ngonge clan. It is Wamala of Uganda in Sonyi that we used to move naked, but
you saved us from. You gave us clothing.
Yeah, you gave us clothing. Those are the different names they gave that gentleman. Yeah. So it became, at first it was a cloth for the royals, for the kings, the princes, the princesses. Now it came again, it went on transforming even to the normal like people. We used to call them abakopi. Yeah. Like almost civilians in the kingdom. Yeah. So it came on expand. Actually, it even became part of the bride price. Even the beloved ones have to mummify in that specific material. The barkcloth is respect to the extent that even if I don't attend a funeral and I send like a piece of a barkcloth, they recognize me that this person has really attended.
That you were there.
Yeah, he was there. Because it is highly, highly respected. For the men, they could put it around their bodies and tie it at the shoulder part here. They cannot. For the ladies, they could make something form of a dress up to the breast area, up here. Now, on the coming of the Arabs, then we saw the tunic, the kanzu. Yeah. The tunic for the Baganda was replicated from the Muslim code of dressing. Those are the times of King Suna. Now this is, I'm speaking of how clothing came on changing, changing like that. Now the tunic of the Baganda is quite unique from the Muslim. For the Baganda's tunic, it always has some embellishments down.
At the base, in the middle.
The base, even here on the chest, unlike to the Muslim. Now today, they put on even a coat on top. Now the coat was borrowed from the English.
Remix.
It was, they are now combinations. Now on the barkcloth, this barkcloth was like pushed away when cotton came. When cotton came, missionaries were looking for market. I would say they ill-preached this material to make people buy cotton, calling it satanic, backward. Even today, when you find somebody who's too religious and finds you the barkcloth, I don't know how many words he can say. Can call Jesus, I don't know how many times. But this came with like Christianity and modernity. But in 2005, even UNESCO has revitalized its manufacture. Today it's a World Heritage product. Companies like the Mercedes, today they manufacture cushions from it. Oh
yes, I read that you have Mercedes and also Adidas, I think, did Adidas, a particular limited edition.
The Rolls Royce.
Wow.
So today it's a high, like product of the highest like item, like precious.
What does that say about the same people that came and bad-mouthed it so many years ago, and now they're having to take it back.
Yeah, they are having to take it back. Yes, that came here in Africa, that whatever we had which was precious, it was taken away. Yeah, most of the items. Yeah. But today, even it has been revitalized by making a lot of items from it, clothing. Today, you find some of the good fashion designers in the world. Yeah. There is no one who doesn't even know the Barkcloth. They have them, they even use them as cushions. Yeah, so we still use it, even the coronation ceremonies of the king. We do use this material. That's how the king dresses. Okay. Yeah, with his note here. Yeah. So it is highly used. It's one of the precious items we have here in Buganda, the Barkcloth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that then, when you have companies like Mercedes, Adidas, picking interest in the Barkcloth, does that then mean the price goes up?
Of course, it increases the price even in the national market. Yeah. Today, to get a cloth made from the Barkcloth, it is quite also expensive. I've got fashion designers here from Dutch, Netherlands. They come here and did research on this material, then they go back and produce the exact thing here. So many countries have embarked on revitalizing it. Okay. Yeah.
Now, for the final half of this segment, let me bring in Kasozi Albert, the outgoing Executive Director of the Buganda Heritage and Tourism Board. And together we'll have a short chat on what it actually means for Kasubi Tombs to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In Uganda, the name Kasubi is almost, if I could say, synonymous with UNESCO, it being the country's only cultural heritage site, if I could use that as a phrase. For someone who doesn't really understand what the weight is for a site like this, for us to have a cultural World Heritage Site, help us understand what exactly, if I could call it, this partnership is between Buganda and UNESCO.
Kasubi as a site was inscribed by UNESCO in 2001. So what we mean by inscription, it was identified as an important site to be added to the sites that UNESCO recognizes in 2001. Now, when UNESCO appreciates a site, it comes with a lot of things that they have to put in place for that site to fit on that list. So it means that, first of all, they assessed the impact that the site has, the significance that the site has, and the need to protect this site. And when the site is inscribed under UNESCO, it's no longer a site of Buganda, because Kasubi is a spiritual site for Uganda. But when it reaches that level, it is even no longer a site for Uganda. It's not a site for East Africa, but it is a global site.
It becomes international property.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when Kasubi was inscribed by UNESCO, it means that it got global recognition. People all over the world have a chance to learn about this site. And of course, they gave reasons why they think this site was supposed to be put in that status. First of all, the uniqueness of the architectural designs of the site, the cultural significance, and the heritage preservation that was needed. Now, the impact that it has, I've told you about the international recognition, but it also gets educational recognition. Ever since Kasubi was opened up as a UNESCO site, I can't tell you how many students have visited this site, but I can try to give you an extent. When we opened the site last year, we got over 500 schools.
Wow.
By the time, because we opened the site in June, by the end of the year, we had over 500 schools. So how many students are those? Yeah. That is educational recognition. When Kasubi is identified as a UNESCO heritage site, you find people traveling all over the world looking for only sites that are within that level. Now, we are lucky as a country that we have Kasubi just in the middle of the city, that someone who is at Sheraton for a cup of tea in 30 minutes can visit a World Heritage Site. So I think it is something very important that we can't take for granted. And also, when you look at, because Kasubi faced a lot of tragedy, if it wasn't for this kind of partnership that we have, maybe it would have been difficult. So the kingdom has got a lot of support from the allies of UNESCO. We got support from the Japanese embassy through UNESCO. We got international aid from the different international agencies. That is the importance of that kind of recognition. And it also encompasses the bigger picture of capacity building. We have to train people to have the skills, community involvement, because those are the things that are required for UNESCO World Heritage Site. What is the impact that it has to the community?
Fantastic. And when you talked about how costly it was to restore the site, in my conversations with several other officials, if I could call them notable figures, throughout this series, we've realized that the cost is not just in terms of money, it's also in terms of the rituals and the,
yes,
if I could call it, spiritual energy that has to come in place
yes,
to make this place worthy again for not just one king, but 4 great kings that rest there. I'd like to go back a little bit to 2010 when we had that tragedy. And in the next segment of this series, we'll have a specific segment on the March 16th incident. But I understand when the site was torched to the ground, UNESCO put Kasubi on, if I could call it, the endangered list. And during your tenure as the head of the Buganda Heritage and Tourism Board, I read that you were part of the delegation that traveled to Saudi Arabia in Riyadh to see that the site goes off that list. Tell us a bit about how that journey was and what then does it really mean for Kasubi for it to be off the endangered list?
Okay, that is a fantastic question. Now, I had the privilege of accompanying the Katikiro to Saudi Arabia. This was on invitation of UNESCO. But before we traveled, there's a lot of things that took place. First of all, we had a visit from a team from Paris, from UNESCO and Africa. And also they were accompanied by technical people from ECOMOS. Now these are guys that UNESCO works with. So they came to carry out an assessment to see, has the site reached a level of being opened up again? Now for UNESCO, they were looking at the restoration of the site, of the monument, which is Muziwaza Lampanga. It didn't only stop there. They also looked at the environment of the site, because as you know, this is a site that is extremely fragile. So this site is broken down into 2 sectors. We have the buffer zone and the core zone. So the buffer zone are the areas around the site, and then the core zone are the communities within the site. I think you've had an interaction with the people in the core zone, the wives of the kings, the community generally within the site and the buffer zone. So they assessed the process of restoration of the site, the risk management procedures that have been put in place, the tourism aspects of the site, the maintenance, how is the fire safety, how is the water supply in the site. So after doing that kind of inspection, they went ahead and even had a meeting with the king to give him a report of what they think the progress of the site is. And actually the king hosted them and he was very, very happy with the report that they gave him. So after that inspection, it was ahead of the UNESCO World Heritage Summit, because all along the people wanted the site to be taken off the endangered list, but UNESCO needed to be sure. First of all, we had to look at the landscape of the site. By then, it had not yet been repaired. We had to look at the security systems of the site. We had to look at the visitors. If we say that the site is off the buffer zone of the endangered list, definitely we are going to get visitors. How ready are we? Where do we receive money from? So those are the questions that we had, and they told us, if you put this in place, we shall comfortably take this off the list. So for us to go to Saudi Arabia, we had documents and reports to defend that, you know what, we have put this in place.
The Kingdom of Buganda and the central government of Uganda have worked together to oversee the restoration process. We appreciate the financial support we received from the governments of Uganda, Japan, Norway, and UNESCO through the World Heritage Fund, which contributed to the restoration process. the Kingdom of Buganda provided the biggest financial support. The restoration works require significant financial, material, and human resources whose insufficiency would impede the speed at which we operated. We are at the final but still critical stage of the restoration process. It is gratifying to be part of this meeting during which recommendations for removal of Kasubi Tombs from the list of World Heritage Properties in danger have been made. And we appreciate all the support extended and exhibited here.
And what surprised me most is that actually the people of the world, the countries that were present in that session, defended the Kasubi more than we did. We had people from Japan, we had people from Egypt, people from Spain. They were standing in for Kasubi. They said this site needs to be taken off the danger zone. Kasubi then became a benchmark in the whole world. It was the first site to be destroyed and then restored based on the guidelines of UNESCO. That kind of collaboration explains what makes Buganda, because Buganda means unity and working together. So even that collaboration that we had to put in place for the goodness of the site is a representation of Buganda.
World Heritage Center ekudde ebiyanja wansi wa UNESCO buyisiza ekiteeso ekijja amasiro g'e Kasubi ku bifo ebyenkizo ebiri mu Katyabaga. Gabadde mawulire ga ssanyu era nnyinza okugamba nti ekyatuleeta tukituuseeko tuli basanyufu nnyo nnyini ddala. Neebaza abali ku mulimu guno eka akakiiko akakulirawo ekitiibwa Kaddu Kiberu, neebaza ab'eggwanika abafeffetta ensimbi okutambuza omulimu, neebaza omuwunda Jonathan Nsubuga abadde ku mulimu nga ye omukubi wa pulaani, neebaza abazaana n'abasiiga abali e Kasubi, neebaza abantu ba Buganda bonna, neebaza obugumiikiriza obw'emyaka 13, naye mbeebaza ne ssente 1000 kubanga era wano mbategeezezza nti wadde twadduukirirwa gavumenti eya Uganda ne gavumenti ya Japan ne Norway, naye ensimbi ezisinga zivudde mu ggwanika ly'Obwakabaka bwa Buganda ate nga ssente ziba mu bantu ba Buganda. Kale tubeebaza nnyo Ssaabasajja Kabaka Wanga.
As soon as the announcement was made that Kasubi has been taken off the danger list,
you had visitors.
Visitors started coming in. As soon as a week after, visitors started coming in. They wanted to visit the site. So that is what prompted us to say that, you know what, this demand that we have for this site, we had to find means of at least opening up the site partially, because a tourist will tell you, I traveled all the way from New Zealand to see this site, the World Heritage Site. So how can you tell me that it's not open?
Yeah. When you say it's not officially open, because I've spent a bit of time around the site and I see the buzz of activity, I see visitors coming in, especially the school groups, which makes me happy that we are, in one way or another, passing on the message to the next generation. What would it be like when it's open? Is there a ceremony? Is the king going to come and like officially open? What does that actually entail?
Well, first of all, when we say that the site is partially opened, it means that there is still work ongoing. One of the reasons, the justifications for partially opening up, we felt that people need to witness and see the work that is going on. The first groups of visitors who came even got a chance of seeing the works inside, of decorating the house, the decoration of the site. The first visitors got that chance to see and witness and say, oh, there is work going on. But what I know is that it is 98% complete. The remaining work is basic work and not so big. Fine details. So there will be an official opening of the site, and I believe it will be done by His Majesty although we have to wait for guidance from our superiors, but I know that there will be a mega opening of the site to officially inform the world that the site is open for visitors.
Okay.
Yes.
Coming up in our 7-part series on the history of the Great Kingdom of Buganda.
The ritual which sparked, I think, the world, it was we were reaching 2015, putting in the center pole of this hut. It had its own particular rituals which were done onto him, how it was uprooted, how it was brought here. Even the engineers were quite amazed with that full process. Yeah. Now it was two-way. People, all the like the custodians of culture, had to play their work.
They always whisper their wishes to God through their ancestors. There's no way you could jump your ancestral chain and go direct to the heavenly God. That's being disrespectful of God's creation. If you compare this with Christianity structure, the small gods, I would call them angels. Or some people might call them saints, but these are angels. Why I say they are like angels? Because they were not having physical body. We knew that this is a spiritual small god, and they were answerable to the heavenly God, Katonda, the creator, God the creator.
They never gave us Christianity because they love us so much, but they had intentions. They soften your heart, please forgive, what, then they take your land. And you remain calm, you don't even fight back.